My name is Nathaniel Dodson, and today in Illustrator we are going to make this illustration of the one and only Pewdiepie. And without belaboring the point or any further ado, let's jump into Illustrator right now and get this thing started. All right, here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to kick this thing off by creating a new document, just 2,000 pixels by 2,000 pixels. I go with RGB color as well. Yeah, no big deal. And before we do anything, of course, we're going to drag our sketch of Pewdiepie into Illustrator. It's just a sketch I made based on a photo that I found in Google Images. I kind of liked it, and you can actually download this sketch if you want to follow along. I guess it's a little more than a sketch, but you can download this using the link down there in the description to this video and follow right along. Drag into Illustrator. I just lock it up on a layer, reduce the opacity to like 40%, and then create a new layer. And on my first layer, this is where I'm going to create my first set of sort of the big, fat, bold lines, the main lines, if you will. But in order to do that, we're going to create a new brush, and I'm going to do that by just filling a black ellipse, a very, very thin ellipse. I'm going to fill it with black, and I'm going to drag it into the brushes panel here and create a new art brush. And I'm just going to change the colorization method to tint and just go ahead and commit the brush change. Okay, great. We've got the new brush. And then I'm going to just draw sort of a squiggled brush out and see the stroke that I have. And I'm going to adjust the stroke in the properties panel, bump it up to about 4 points. And once I set my initial stroke to 4 points, now all the strokes that I draw out are going to be 4 points until I change it for the future. So I'm going to just begin drawing his ears and just kind of things that I know will sort of sit to the back, if you will. So again, main lines and stuff that's going to be to the back. And you can draw a series of short lines. You can draw long flowing lines. Usually before I do something like this, I like to open up my brush options and just set my brush to draw pretty smooth lines as well. You can open your brush options by just double clicking on your brush icon in the toolbar. And then just a series of short strokes, and we just outline his entire face. And again, they can be as long or short as you like, just whatever's going to work for your illustration. And just be quick to hit the undo if something seems to get messed up. It's really no big deal. And I go ahead and just quickly outline everything: hair, lapels, or collar, I guess I should say, and shoulders. And then I create a second layer. And on the second layer, I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller. You can see we're down to 2 or 3 points here. And I'm going to outline the eyes and some of the more detail-oriented areas of his face. The eyes are super important, obviously, because if you make them the wrong shape, somebody's going to look weird. If you make them too big, it's going to look weird. And if you make them too small, it's going to look weird. So you kind of have to get them as close to right as you can get them. It can be a little bit of a trial and error process, but just go for it. Have some fun with it like everything else. And after we do the eyes, I'm just marking up some of the other areas on the face, like the nose, some of the sort of smile lines and areas in the ear, beneath the mouth. And I've already set the sort of the base of the eyebrows as well. So just adding some detail here with the lines, adding a little bit of detail as well to the hair. And then, of course, we create a third layer, and we're going to make the brush ever smaller and just build out the eyebrows and other lines and markings and dimples and wrinkles and creases and everything on the face to just add some more of that detail, just one little bit at a time. I'll also go into the hair and add some sort of flowing hairs here and there, where it makes sense, or I should say lines, that sort of fake flowing hairs. But we're gonna play around with another method here in a minute for creating series of lines like that as well. And I should say at this point as well, I am using a tablet. So if you don't have a tablet, don't worry, you can still do this. It just takes a little bit longer because you're gonna kind of need to make every line by hand using the pen tool. But obviously, if you have a tablet, it makes something like this kind of fast and very free-flowing and organic feeling. It's really nice. So just going through and finishing up the mouth and the teeth, and moving right along, then I'll grab my direct selection tool and go in. I like to turn on smart guides and snap to point and just go through and just clean up the main set of lines. Anywhere where they're overlapping, I like to kind of click things back together and just make sure everything's sort of lined up and flowing together the way that I want it to be flowing together. So you can make adjustments to everything: the eyes, the hair, you name it. Just go through with that direct selection tool and make those adjustments. So once that's done, I want to add some series of lines, like here near the part in his hair, let's say. And I'm going to do this by just adding 2 strokes with the brush tool, kind of at opposite ends of where I want the lines to be. And I'm going to go Object Blend, and I'm going to open up my blending options. And here in blending options, I'm going to choose specified steps and just choose a number that's, not crazy, but something that I think will sort of fill the space with lines. And then I'll just choose here to make the fill. Now note the hotkey on the Mac, it's Command Option B, so that should be Control Alt B for those those of us on the PC as well. And I like to go through and just create a series of lines kind of where they make sense and mess around with, you can mess around with the stroke width tool and, adding lines here and adding lines there. I'll create sets of little brush strokes, and I'll select all, 3 or 4 little pieces of brush stroke and add a blend there just to add a whole series of lines that can kind of follow along a curve or things like that. And it's really just a process of tweaking and adjusting and fine-tuning it as you go just to get your lines exactly how you want them to be. So at this point, it's, I would normally spend a lot more time tweaking and adjusting, but we're working on this video, so let's move along to the coloring process. The first thing I'll do is drop in a background image behind my sketch. And by the way, the reason that my sketch is see-through like this to the background is because I had actually set the sketch to the multiply blend mode as well as reducing it to 40% opacity. So it allows us to see through all the sort of white areas of that. And by the way, while we're going through this, I'll hit that little eye icon and check out the poll for this video. And let me know if you've subscribed to my channel or not using that little poll in this YouTube video. But anyway, we're going to move along here, add a new layer just above the sketch, but beneath all of our lines because we want to tuck our paint underneath the lines. And we're going to grab the blob brush tool, and I'm going to open the blob brush tool up and make sure keep selected is checked on, and also merge with the selection is checked on, and also bump the size of the brush up and make sure that it's relatively smooth. Now, one quick trick when you're using this brush, you can use your square bracket keys to make the brush larger or smaller on the fly while you're painting and coloring. And the nice thing about the blob brush is it's going to create big shapes of color, and because it is going to remain selected even when I finish painting with the brush, I can just release the brush, it keeps that piece of color selected, and when I start painting again, it's going to automatically add the new paint stroke to that shape. So we're going to quickly build out shapes of color for all these different areas of Pewdiepie. So I'm beginning with the hair. I go through, add a little highlight there. Then I'm going to go ahead and add all of the color for the skin as well. Again, just making sure that I'm tucking the color underneath those thick strokes. They hide kind of the rough, jagged edge of the color and allow everything to look sort of nice. I can add a couple more little detail bits if needed. I'm going to colorize the jacket a little bit, add some color to those collars, and then move in and colorize the eyes a little bit, add the little catch lights, and then move down to the lips, colorize the lips, the shadow beneath the teeth, all that kind of stuff. And then what I want to do is begin the process of shading or dodging and burning, however you want to think about it. And what I'm going to do is take that sketch layer from the bottom and I'm going to drag it all the way up to the top. So it's still set to that multiply blend mode, still at 40% opacity. That's great. I'm going to add a new layer beneath it and call this layer burning. And I'm going to set this layer to the multiply blend mode. And then all I'm going to do is sample the color, like the color of his skin here, and I'm just going to paint, again, using the blob brush, and just roughly follow the sort of shaded areas that I already have in my sketch. So I'm just following along with those and painting to add in some shadowing. And the shading and shadowing, it's super duper heavy, but don't worry about it. We're just trying to lay down the shapes for now. What we can do is select that entire layer by hitting the little circle for that layer in the Layers panel, and then open up the Properties panel and reduce the opacity down to whatever, 30, 40, 50%, whatever's going to look good for your sketch. And we just tone down all of that shading, make it look a little bit better. And then I'm going to do the same thing for highlights. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this dodging or highlights, whatever you want, and set this layer to the screen blend mode. We're going to just use that same color and just begin painting over areas of the image with the blob brush that we think need a little highlight. And again, it's super duper strong. It's way too powerful. You can, adjust and tweak and have fun with it. Try different highlight areas and just play with it and have fun. And then again, once we lay out all of our highlights just like that, we here as well will select this layer, open up that Properties panel, and reduce the overall opacity of that layer just to help those highlights blend in a little bit better. And then it's a matter of going back through, like I'm just looking here around the eyes, the teeth maybe, the teeth and then the eyes, and a couple areas around his face that need a little more shading and shadowing. Going ahead and doing that. And I created a new layer as well. And I'm just using the pen tool in this instance to create a big shape just to darken the area where the sort of scruff and facial hair is, darken up that shadow beneath his chin just a little bit. We don't want it to look just like a straight up double chin, but that's okay. And then I double click on my magic wand tool and set the magic wand tool to select stroke color because I can select all those strokes that we just made. And then I'm going to go to my color picker and I'm just going to make these like a really dark blue. I try a couple different colors here, but I end up settling with like a dark semi-saturated blue, which just helps soften the entire portrait, which is kind of nice. And then I fill in beneath him with kind of this blobby sea green color that matches the background just to cut off the bottom of the portrait just sort of nicely and give it a nice, clean finish. And at this point, you're ready to just take your artwork and export it and share it with your friends and have some fun with it. Well, that's it for this one, folks. If you did enjoy it, check out my other more in-depth tutorial on creating a Western-style illustration here in Adobe Illustrator as well. Creating the entire scene. It's a bunch of fun. I think you'll really like it. You can use that link there in the middle of the screen and check it out. Of course, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any other videos that come out in the future. And thank you very much for watching all the way till the end of the video. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Get it, got it, good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one.